Good morning, students. I am Shubha Hiremat, Assistant Professor of English, Government First Grade College, Dharwad. In the previous session, we have discussed the plot of the story An Astrologer's Day written by R.K. Narayan. In this session, let us understand the main characters of the story. The protagonist of the story is Astrologer. He is nameless and is not truly an astrologer but a common man. The two main characters of the story are the astrologer, who is not given a name, and Guru Nayak, the client, who turns out to be a former victim, now on a quest for revenge. The astrologer is not given a name partly because he is intended to be seen for most of the story as a typical figure, one of the many who conduct their business in makeshift locations in the city, and partly because the narrative mode does not require that he be given a name. It is only at the end of the story that astrologer is given an individuality that makes him a distinctive figure. Also, in the story, he interacts only with two characters. The first, a passerby who seeks his advice about the future. The relation between the two is purely functional, and there would be no need for the person to address the astrologer by name. The second is astrologer's wife, who speaks to him at the end of the story. In this instance, convention demands that she should not use his name to address him. In a typical South Indian family, it would be rare for a wife to address her husband by name. Hence, despite the latitude of omniscient narration, the author chooses to let the astrologer remain anonymous. Nonetheless, the astrologer comes across as sharply defined figure mainly as a result of the assortment of objects he carries with him in order to create the illusion of spirituality and mystical knowledge. The care he takes over his personal appearance is yet another aspect of his charisma. The profession of an astrologer presupposes a commitment to religious observance, and that is precisely what the character achieves through his eclectic collection of articles. In the beginning of the story itself, the narrator takes a lot of time and energy to describe his appearance. Punctually at midday, he opened his bag and spread out his professional equipment, which consisted of a dozen cowrie shells, a square piece of cloth with obscure mystic charts on it, a notebook, and a bundle of Palmyra writing. This is the common equipments of any astrologer we find in India. And this story, the setting of the story we already know is pre-independent India. The narrator continues to describe the astrologer that his forehead was resplendent with sacred ash and vermilion, and his eyes sparkled with a sharp abnormal gleam, which was really an outcome of a continual searching look for customers, but which his simple clients took to be a prophetic light and felt comforted. To crown the effect, he wrapped a saffron-colored turban around his head. This color scheme never failed. People were attracted to him as bees are attracted to cosmos or dahlia stalks. He sat under the boughs of a spreading tamarind tree which flanked a path near through the town hall park. Thus, the description of astrologer and his professional equipments is very effective and convincing to the readers. The combination of holy ash and vermilion on his forehead, the turban on his head, and his whiskers all taken together give the impression of a man given to a holy life rather than business. The author ensures that despite the external trappings, the astrologer is not necessarily a negative or wrong figure. Telling the future is a job, not unlike selling peanuts or cloth. And he does this with a sense of purpose and commitment. Within the overall structure of the story, it is important for the astrologer to come across as a somewhat mild and inoffensive person who had left his village to escape a life of poverty. His portrayal as a positive character helps to offset the relevance at the end that he had left the village after committing a crime. The important aspect of astrologer's character is that as the story progresses, he moves from being a type to a carefully individualized person. Having no lighting system of his own, he manages to get by on his adjoining vendor's light. When the groundnut seller closes shop, he has no lighting to conduct his business, and he too lives for home. Similarly, when his clients seek his advice, he lets them speak long enough in order to gather sufficient information to make an educated guess about their future. His intuitive understanding of human nature and his wit are crucial to the plot of the story, and the relevance of all the details becomes evident at the end of the story. Among the trickster figures that Narayan has created in his work, the astrologer is a memorable and likable one. As evening approached, he saw a man passing by and assumed he would be potential client. The story takes a turning point when the customer was none other than his own old friend Guru Nayak, who lit a cheroot, and astrologer recognized him as a man he had stabbed and left for dead many years ago. Finally, the astrologer tells Guru Nayak what he wants to hear. The man he was searching for was none other than the astrologer himself, but he was again cheated by the appearance of astrologer, and because of this disguise he again misled Guru Nayak, telling that the man he was searching was dead 4 months away, and he also warned Guru Nayak not to travel in the south. Fortunately, Guru Nayak does not recognize the astrologer, and he is also satisfied with the answer, which makes astrologer extra money from him. The astrologer is relieved to know he didn't kill the man. It is only at the end of the story when the astrologer, who returned home and told his wife that he was relieved from a great burden, he told her that he escaped from the village only to live a life in disguise. In his youthful days, he quarreled, gambled, and in a fit of rage stabbed his friend, that is Guru Nayak. But now he is alive. So at the end of the story, we come to know that the astrologer is a fake one and he had used this profession only to live in disguise. The second character in this story is Guru Nayak. He is the antithesis of the astrologer. He appears in the story at midpoint and almost immediately comes across as both aggressive and mean-spirited. Unlike the astrologer, who is described through third-person narrative, Nayak is revealed through his own dialogue. He too remains nameless until astrologer addresses him by name. The name itself is chosen carefully, for the term Guru, with all its associations of spiritual leader or teacher, is noticeably different from what we see in the character. Nayak is on a quest for the person who harmed him, and his attempt to solicit the assistance of the astrologer is part of his quest. Unlike other clients, Nayak begins with a skeptical attitude, and rather than accept the astrologer or leave him altogether, insist on wager. According to the wager, astrologer must be accurate in his predictions or give up a substantial sum of money. The wager is carefully inserted in the story in order to reveal later that Nayak, with his penchant for gambling, would have been at least partly to blame for the altercation in the past. It is also significant that at the end of the story, when astrologer's wife adds up the coins given by Nayak and announces the total, the astrologer realizes that he has been cheated. He declared that he will give him 1 rupee if he is satisfied with the answer, but the amount is less. A small detail in itself, it establishes that Nayak is the opposite of the astrologer, and in the overall moral scheme of the story, it is the astrologer who is the victim and not the other. From the perspective of narrative strategy, it is remarkable that while astrologer is revealed through his actions and the point of view of the narrator, Nayak is shown through his dialogue. His language is very abrupt and elliptical, and his short sentences suggest a pugnacious nature. The astrologer instantly replied that the culprit had died 4 months ago in a far-off town. Guru was disappointed to hear it. Astrologer identified the name of the man before him as Guru Nayak. Choosing a diction is always challenge for the writer when the characters would have, in normal circumstances, spoken a different language and not English. In this instance, the chances are that Nayak would have spoken in Tamil. The language he speaks in English is thus a close approximation of the kind of language he would have used in Tamil. He told the man that his village was a 2 days journey north and warned him to go back home and never to travel south again. Astrologer asked him to return to his hometown immediately as his life was in danger. He satisfied by informing that the culprit was crushed under a lorry. The man left after giving astrologer a handful of coins. Guru Nayak, rather than seek the assistance of the astrologer, proposes a wager with the intention of fleecing him. A bully by nature, his objective is to intimidate the astrologer in order to appreciate his money. Curiously enough, at the end of the exchange, it is the astrologer who wins the sympathy of the reader. One of the ironies of the story is that in this encounter, the astrologer's supernatural knowledge turns out to be the truth, and Nayak lives after having accepted the astrologer's advice about the future. Nayak's attitude at the end also affirms an interesting aspect of the astrological prediction, at least as it is often practiced. The importance of prediction is not so much objective truth as it is the capacity to state what will resolve the conflict in the mind of the client. The third character in the story, or the only other character in the story, is the wife of the astrologer, who is also nameless, mainly because husbands rarely refer to their wives by name in the social ethos of the story. The absence of a name also has the effect of casting her as a type confined to the house, comfortable with attending to household chores, cooking, and taking care of their children. She is also not from the village, a trivial detail but a necessary one in that it provides the occasion for the astrologer to confess his past indiscretion at the end of the story. Had the wife been from the same village, the astrologer's confession would have been redundant and would have ruined the economy of the story. The wife is also a means to suggest the overall economic standing of the family, since acquiring 12.5 annas, a paltry sum by Indian standards, becomes an occasion for celebration. She also serves the functional purpose of providing the occasion for astrologer to reveal aspects of his past and the significance of having encountered Guru Nayak on that day. Narayan's women characters are not often as sharply defined as his male characters, and the woman in this story is no exception. She was extremely happy to encounter big amount, and she planned to buy jaggery and coconut for their child who was demanding for sweets from a long time. She can sense when something was all right or not. It is only with the help of this person that we come to know what actually happened in the past and how could the astrologer predict it so accurately. The astrologer confessed to his wife that in his youth he was into bad company with Guru Nayak. He drank, gambled, and quarreled badly one day and had a fight and had almost killed Guru Nayak. Thus, at the end of the story, the readers realize that the man whom Guru Nayak was searching was none other than astrologer himself. Finally, astrologer is freed from the burden of killing a man. Astrologer's wife comes across as a type rather than as a sharply individualized person. Thus, the story is very skillfully handled by the narrator, and the plot is constructed with the help of these strong characters, and it is beautifully written by R.K. Narayan. With this, I will conclude my lecture. and in the next session we will discuss the theme of an astrologer's day. Thank you.